Good morning. It is 10:21 a.m. on July 23rd, 2016. Oops, left my PS Vita going there. Uh, I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. I said that part? No? Okay. Oh, been fiddling with my sound settings again, so hopefully this is still okay. Also, the air conditioner's going right now. What was I talking about? Oh, right. Today, I've got plans to go see the new Star Trek movie and then attend a Star Trek 50th anniversary party thing. Yay! That'll be fun. So that's going to take up a good chunk of later today. Last night, I watched a bunch of Steven Universe. And you know what? I tell you, I have occasionally heard, the question go around to various creatives is like, what do you wish you had written? Or what do you wish you had created? Like, just the idea of like, what work do you so admire or are so influenced by that you sort of like you I always kind of interpret the question as being like what sort of thing would you like to make? Like, would you want to make something that was like something that already exists? Which isn't the same as just trying to copy it, but like, so there are various things that I just sort of feel like I wish I could make something like that. And Steven Universe is absolutely one of those. It's something where it's got such an interesting balance of just silliness with real depth of character and real emotion and real insight at the same time that it's just funny and it's got action, and I just love it so much. Come on now. Um, Another example of an answer to that question is the Hayao Miyazaki movie Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind. That one and Spirited Away, I think, are my two favorites of the Miyazaki anime films. And those two are just, stories where I sort of feel like it just the meaning for it. There's just such depth of meaning there for me that I feel like I would like to make something like that. And yet that doesn't mean that like I'm setting out and saying, let me write a story that's like that. I don't write that way. I kind of have to let the stories come through me, but I just sort of feel like if I could choose an outcome and yet still arrive there organically, I feel like that's the sort of thing that I would like to write. Um, when I think about it, it's funny that I think that there's an element of balancing idealism and cynicism in me, because when I think about some of those stories that are examples like that of things that I admire, works like that. I don't want to say naivete. There's an idealism in them. And I find that I think my own work tends to be a little snarkier or more sarcastic than those things. And I wonder if there's like it's. I think there's an element of cynicism in there that is like a defense mechanism. It's like a fear of if you reached all the way, you'd be in danger, and so there's the sarcasm as a defense mechanism, just like a lot of people use it, and I suspect I do sometimes too. And I wonder if there's an element of that in my work. Anyway, I've got my head in the very spacey places right now because I also just recently finished my replay of the second Zero Escape game. I've talked about that a couple of times here. Virtue's Last Reward. Boy, that gets into some heady territory towards the end with time time travel by swapping consciousnesses, and clones and moon bases and plagues that make your brain work 1/6 speed, and all sorts of crazy stuff happens in that game. And one of the best examples of, I don't want to say just unreliable narrator, but an unreliable narrator who is not only unreliable to us, the consumer of the story, but also to themselves, that I can think of, where knowing the secret, as I did in my second playthrough, I could see all of these clues of things that basically it feels like the game spends a fair amount of time all throughout giving you these signposts that would tip off the big reveal, except that the big reveal is just such a bananas story that you would never, like all of these clues, even though they seem weird at the time, it just, the actual answer ends up being so crazy that you just kind of, you would never think of it as being the explanation. And so there's an awful lot of stuff that throughout the game you just sort of write off as like, well, that was weird. But I suspect that most people would not ever be able to put it together, because there's so much other weirdness going on that it kind of tends to fade into the background noise. But then when you actually get the reveal, there's all of these things that have happened that suddenly just like, that's why she said this when I said that, and that's why this happened, and that's why this, and that's why that, and you're like, oh, it was great. All right. Anyway, I really recommend those games. I believe that they're coming to Steam. As I've previously mentioned, I think the only place you can play, so you can play 999, which is the first game in the series, on the 3DS, and that's where I played it. It's actually a DS game, so you can play it on a DS or a 3DS for Nintendo. And I believe that there's an iOS version that's a little different, like it has the story part but not the puzzles part. I'm not really sure how that works. And then the sequel is on both 3DS and Vita, and I played it on the Vita. And then the new one is also on Vita and Steam, I think. And then the hope is that maybe the first two will come to Steam as well. But I really like them. It's a lot of reading, but I enjoyed them thoroughly. So in any case, I will talk to you guys tomorrow for 5 more minutes. How about that? Huh? Well? Huh? Okay. Fine. All right then.